A new chapter, Martha's story. To part one, the end and beginning. Rain had been drumming against the windows for 3 days straight. Martha sat in the living room of her Boston home, the home she had shared with Robert for the past 28 years. On the coffee table in front of her lay divorce papers, signed just a few hours ago. 32 years, she whispered, looking at her hands. 32 years of marriage ended with a few signatures on official documents. The clock on the mantelpiece struck 6 in the evening, but Martha didn't get up to prepare dinner. For the first time in many years, she didn't need to feed anyone or take care of anyone. At 57, Martha Campbell was alone again. The children had grown up. Jason lived in Seattle with his family. Emily was in Chicago, building her marketing career. And Robert now lived with Jennifer, a woman 17 years younger than Martha. "It doesn't mean anything," Robert had said when he confessed to the affair a year ago. "We're just good friends. She understands my ambitions." Martha remembered well how something broke inside her at that moment. Not so much from the news of infidelity. She had long felt that their marriage had turned into a habit, but from the realization that she had spent the last decades living in the shadow of her husband and his career. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Her sister's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, Susan. How are you, honey?" Papers signed. "Yes, this morning," Martha replied, looking out the window at the wet streets. "I'm officially divorced." "And how do you feel?" Susan's voice was filled with concern. Martha thought about it. She had expected to feel sadness, emptiness, even grief. But instead, I feel relief, as if I can finally breathe deeply." "That's good, Martha. You deserve to breathe deeply." After a pause, Susan added, "Remember our conversation about that store you always wanted to open? Maybe now is the time." Martha smiled involuntarily. In college, she had studied interior design, but after marriage, she put those plans aside, supporting Robert in his career as a financial consultant. The dream of her own small home decor shop had always remained with her, hiding somewhere deep in her heart. "I'm 57, Susan. Isn't it too late to start all over again?" "Too late?" Susan snorted. "Remember Barbara from my book club? She opened a travel agency at 62. Now she has 3 offices in different states." Martha sighed. "I don't even know where to begin." "Well, you have a good financial situation after the divorce, the house, and half of the retirement savings. And you have me, your older sister, who happens to have been working as a business consultant for the last 20 years. When they finished talking, Martha walked to the window. The rain had stopped, and the last rays of the setting sun were breaking through the clouds, painting the puddles in golden hues. "A new chapter," she said, feeling something akin to hope blooming in her heart for the first time in a long while. Part 2. Overcoming Fear. Martha spent the next few weeks researching the market and developing a business plan with Susan's help. She discovered that Boston lacks stores specializing in local design and handcrafted home goods. "Your niche is supporting local artists and artisans, especially women of middle and older age," Susan said during one of their meetings at a cafe. "I think you can become a bridge between local talents and customers looking for something special and authentic." The idea seemed promising, but every time Martha thought about practical steps, she was overcome with fear. For 30 years, she had been primarily a wife and mother. Could she become an entrepreneur? One evening, when doubts were particularly strong, she decided to sort through boxes in the storage room, a task she had postponed for years. In one of them, Martha found old albums with clippings and interior design sketches she had created before her wedding. Looking through them, she was surprised at how fresh and modern some of the ideas looked. On one page, she discovered a list of goals written by 22-year-old Martha. "Open my own store by 30. Create spaces where people feel happy." "Not by 30, but by 60, Martha murmured with a slight smile. The next morning, her phone erupted with messages from Emily. "Mom, I just found out from Dad about your divorce. I'm sorry I can't come right now. We have a critical situation with a project. But I called Uncle Michael, and he said his company has a small space on Newbury Street that's becoming available next month. He's willing to rent it to you at a reduced rate. It's a sign, Mom. Remember how you always wanted to open your store? Maybe now is the time? Martha was moved to tears. Her daughter not only supported her, but was actively helping, and she remembered her old dreams. Newbury Street was the perfect location, one of Boston's most prestigious shopping streets, but the space offered by Robert's brother was in a side alley where rent was more affordable. Gathering her courage, Martha called Michael. "Martha, I was just about to call you," her former brother-in-law greeted her. "Emily told me about your plans. You know, Robert may be an idiot, but you've always been part of our family." "Thank you, Michael. That means a lot to me. So are you interested in the space?" "It's not huge, about 860 square feet, but it has good display windows and a separate entrance." A week later, Martha was inspecting the space. It was smaller than she had imagined for her store, but well lit and with character. High ceilings, brick walls, large windows. "I'll take it," she said, feeling her heart racing. That same evening, she called Jason. "Are you sure, Mom?" her son asked after she told him about her plans. "That's a big commitment, and Dad says—" "I didn't ask your father," Martha replied, surprised at her own firmness. "And yes, I'm sure. I haven't been this sure in many years." There was a pause, then Jason said, "You know, I remember how as a child you were always rearranging furniture and decorating the house for every holiday. You made our home special. If anyone can create a store that people will want to visit, it's you." Her son's words warmed her heart. Martha began to understand that despite all her fears, she was not alone. She had the support of family and friends, and most importantly, she had knowledge and passion that she had suppressed for too long. Part 3. Rebirth. The next 3 months flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Martha registered her business under the name A New Chapter, a name that reflected both her personal situation and the idea that interior items help people start a new stage in their homes. With Susan's help, she developed a financial plan, ensuring a safety cushion for the first year of operation. The renovation of the space turned out to be more expensive than she expected, but the result exceeded all expectations. The space transformed into a cozy store with warm lighting and thoughtful layout, where each item could be presented in the best way. The most difficult part turned out to be finding suppliers. Martha wanted her store to stand out from chain stores with a unique assortment created by local craftspeople. "You should go to the craft fair in Cambridge this weekend," suggested Patricia, Martha's friend and book club member. "There you'll find exactly the artisans you're looking for." At the fair, Martha met dozens of talented people. She was particularly impressed by the work of Eleanor James, a 70-year-old woman creating stunning ceramic vases. "I started working with ceramics when I retired," Eleanor explained. "It's never too late to discover a new talent." By the end of the day, Martha had contacts with 15 artisans ready to collaborate with her store. But the real breakthrough came when Emily offered to use her marketing skills. Together, they created a strategy focused not only on traditional channels but also on social media. "Mom, people will be interested not only in your products but also in your story," Emily explained. "A woman who, after 30 years of marriage, dared to follow her dream. That's inspiring." Martha was doubtful. "But I don't want to build a business on the story of my divorce." "It's not about the divorce, but about a new beginning," Emily insisted, "about the fact that it's never too late to pursue your dreams." They launched a blog and social media accounts where Martha shared stories about items in her store, the craftspeople who created them, and how to start a new chapter in life, whether through updating interiors or through deeper changes. A week before opening, Martha received an unexpected call from Robert. "I heard about your store," he said without preamble. "Emily won't stop talking about it." Martha tensed. "And what do you think?" I think I always knew there was more to you than being my wife," he replied quietly. "I'm happy for you, Martha." "Really?" These words surprised her. For the first time in years, Robert saw her not just as his companion, but as a separate person with her own ambitions. "Thank you, Robert." On opening day, A New Chapter was full of people. Not only did Martha's friends and family come, but also many of the artisans whose work she represented, as well as journalists from local publications who had become interested in Martha's story thanks to social media. Standing in the center of her store, watching visitors admire carefully selected items, Martha felt deep satisfaction. She hadn't just survived the end of her marriage, she had created something new and beautiful. Part 4. Growing Pains. The first 6 months of operating a new chapter were intense. The initial interest, fueled by Martha's story, provided a good start, but maintaining that level of sales proved more difficult than she had expected. Retail business is always cyclical, Susan explained during one of their weekly lunches. You need to learn to plan with seasonal fluctuations in mind. Martha nodded, taking notes. And I understand that we need to expand our online presence. Many customers ask if we have an online store. That requires investment, Susan warned. Are you ready for that? Martha thought about it. Her financial situation was stable, but not unlimited. Developing an online platform required money that she had planned to set aside for expanding the physical store. The solution came unexpectedly. One of her customers, Diana Foster, stopped by the store on a rainy Tuesday when there were almost no visitors. This place is special, Diana said, looking around. You can feel the soul here. They got to talking, and Martha learned that Diana was a successful entrepreneur who owned a chain of boutique hotels. I'm always looking for unique items for our rooms, Diana explained, and I like supporting local artisans. By the end of the conversation, they had an idea for collaboration. A new chapter would become a supplier of decorative elements for Diana's newest hotel opening in Boston. This meant a stable order and visibility for Martha's brand in a prestigious location. But not everything went smoothly. Martha faced a problem when one of her main suppliers sharply raised prices. I can't continue to work with such a margin, she explained to Eleanor James, whose ceramic pieces were among the store's best sellers. I understand, Eleanor sighed, but my material costs have gone up, and considering the time I invest in each piece. Martha saw the dilemma from both sides. As a business owner, she had to think about profitability, but as a person who valued handcraft and supported local artists, she understood Eleanor's position. After much reflection, Martha proposed a compromise. Instead of raising prices on the existing line, they would create an exclusive collection for the project with Diana's hotel, where a higher price would be justified by uniqueness. This experience taught her flexibility and a creative approach to solving business problems. Martha began to understand that her 30 years of experience managing a home and family had given her skills that proved invaluable in business. The ability to find compromises, efficiently allocate resources, and think about the long term. Another test was her health. Constant stress and physical strain led Martha to experience back pain and sleep problems. You can't sacrifice yourself for the business, Susan insisted. You need to learn to delegate. Hiring an assistant turned out to be both scary and liberating. Lisa, a design school student, took on some of the store duties, allowing Martha to focus on strategic issues and maintain her own health. By the end of the first year, a new chapter had not just survived, it was thriving. The collaboration with Diana's hotel led to other corporate clients, and the online presence, though modest, started bringing orders from other cities. On her 58th birthday, Martha held a small party at the store. Among the guests were Emily and Jason with his family, Susan, several close friends, and many of the artisans she worked with. To new beginnings, Jason toasted, raising his glass. And to my mom, who showed us all that it's never too late to start a new chapter. Looking at the people surrounding her, Martha felt deep gratitude. A year ago, she had sat alone in an empty house, not knowing what lay ahead. Now she stood at the center of a community she had created herself. Part 5, Full Circle. Months passed, and a new chapter found its place in the Boston business landscape. Martha was no longer just selling goods. She was creating a space where people found inspiration and support. The weekly workshops she began conducting in the second year attracted a diverse audience, from young couples furnishing their first home to elderly people wanting to refresh long familiar spaces. It's not about following trends, Martha often said at these meetings. It's about creating a home that reflects your individuality and supports your dreams. This philosophy resonated with people, especially women of middle and older age, many of whom, like Martha, were at a crossroads in life. An interview she gave for Boston Woman magazine brought even more attention to her story in business. "We tend to think that by 50 our lives are already formed," she told the journalist. "But I found that it can be the beginning of a completely new path." After the article was published, Martha received dozens of letters and messages from women inspired by her story. Some shared their plans to start a new business. Others wrote about how they decided to make changes in their personal lives. "Your story gave me the courage to file for divorce after 25 years of an unhappy marriage," one woman wrote. "If you could start over, so can I." Such messages touched Martha deeply. She had never planned to become an example for others, but realized that her experience could help women in similar situations. This led to a new initiative, a series of New Chapter of Life seminars where Martha and invited experts discussed practical aspects of change, from financial planning to emotional well-being. Martha's personal life also underwent changes. After 2 years devoted mainly to business, she began to open up to new relationships. A friendship with Alan, an architect she met at one of the design conferences, grew into something more. "I wasn't looking for romance," she confessed to Susan, "but with Alan everything is different. He sees me as I am now, not through the lens of the past." Their relationship developed slowly and carefully, with mutual respect for each other's experience and independence. On Martha's 60th birthday, Alan gave her an antique writing desk. "For your plans and dreams for the next decade," he said with a smile. By the third anniversary of A New Chapter, the business was successful enough for Martha to consider expansion. The space next door became available, and she thought long and hard about whether to rent it. "What's stopping you?" Alan asked when they discussed it over dinner. Martha thought about it. "I guess fear. What if I aim too high and lose everything?" "What if you don't aim high enough and miss an opportunity?" he countered. "You've already proven you can succeed. Trust your intuition." After much reflection, Martha decided to take the risk. The new space allowed her not only to expand her assortment, but also to create a corner for individual interior design consultations, a service many clients had been asking about in recent months. This decision led to an unexpected encounter. One morning, an elegant elderly woman walked into the expanded store. "My name is Elizabeth Hartman," she introduced herself. "I'm a retired design professor. A friend recommended your store to me." They got to talking, and Martha mentioned that she had studied design in college before setting aside career ambitions for family. "Who did you study under?" Elizabeth inquired. "My mentor was Professor Mary Johnson." Elizabeth smiled. "Mary was my colleague and close friend. She often talked about a student with exceptional taste and vision. Now I understand it was you." This meeting was the beginning of a new collaboration. Elizabeth offered to help develop the design services of A New Chapter, contributing her many years of experience and connections in the academic world. "Perhaps you should consider a partnership with the Design College," she suggested. "Internships for students, master classes. It would be beneficial to both sides." By her 60th birthday, Martha was not just the owner of a successful business. She had become a mentor for young designers and an example for women of her generation. One day, looking through invitations to various events, she discovered a letter from her alma mater. She was invited to give a speech to the graduates of the design faculty. "What will I talk about?" she asked Alan when she showed him the invitation. "About how life doesn't end after 50, he replied. "About how sometimes the end of one story is just the beginning of a new, more interesting chapter." On the day of the speech, standing before an audience of young people full of hopes and ambitions, and seeing her children, Alan and Susan, in the back rows, Martha felt that her life had come full circle. "I stand before you not as someone who always knew their path," she began, "but as a person who found the courage to start anew when many thought it was already too late. I want you to know, it's never too late for a new chapter. It's never too late to become who you've always dreamed of being." The applause that followed her speech was deafening, but louder than all was Martha's inner voice, which had once been a barely audible whisper. "You did it. You really did it." Epilogue. 5 years later, a new chapter had transformed into a network of 3 stores in the Boston area. Martha no longer managed day-to-day operations, entrusting this to her team, including Lisa, who had grown from a student assistant to a talented manager. At 65, Martha had discovered a new balance in life. 3 days a week, she consulted clients on interior design, work that brought her special pleasure. The rest of her time she devoted to family, traveling with Alan, and her new project, a book called A New Chapter, A Guide to Restarting Life After 50. Who would have thought I'd become an author at 65? She laughed, working on the manuscript in her home office. The offer from the publisher came after a series of articles she wrote for a design and lifestyle magazine. Family dynamics had also changed. Relations with Robert, though still reserved, had become more friendly. They had learned to be polite companions at family events, especially after the birth of their second grandchild. "Grandma," 4-year-old Thomas shouted, bursting into her house one Sunday morning, "I drew something for your store." Martha seriously studied his drawing, a bright image of what could have been either a house or a spaceship. "This is amazing, sweetheart. I think we need to hang this on the wall in the store." Her grandson's proud smile was one of those small joys that filled her life. One evening, looking through old photographs for her book, Martha came across a picture taken on her wedding day with Robert. The young couple looked into the camera with hope and expectation. She didn't feel bitterness or regret. That marriage had given her 2 wonderful children and invaluable experience. It was part of the path that led her to where she was now. In a frame on her desk stood a recent photograph. Martha surrounded by her team at the opening of the third A New Chapter store. Her face radiated confidence and calm that come only with age and experience. Next to this photograph lay a letter from a woman in Seattle. "At 58, I thought the best years were behind me. Your story inspired me to open the art gallery I'd been dreaming of for 20 years. Thank you for showing me that our final chapters can be the brightest." Such letters still touched Martha deeply. She didn't strive to be an inspiration for others, but she recognized the power of example and the responsibility that comes with it. In the sunset of life, she found a new calling, helping women of her generation see not what they had lost, but what they could still gain. We are a generation of women who raised children, supported spouses, cared for parents, she said at a conference on aging. Now it's time to care for our own dreams. In an era when life expectancy is increasing, Martha became the voice of those who believe that the third act of life can be just as rich and meaningful as the previous ones. In her garden, which had become her new passion, she often reflected on cycles of growth and renewal. Plants wither only to bloom again in the next season. So too with life, a series of new beginnings, if only we are ready to see the possibilities. When Alan asked her once if she regretted anything, Martha thought for a long time before answering. "I regret that I was afraid of change for so long," she said finally. "But I'm grateful that I found the courage to start anew when the chance presented itself." In this, I think, lies true wisdom, knowing when to close one door to open another. And this was the essence of Martha's story, not in what she had lost or gained, but in the journey itself, in the courage to move forward, in discovering new chapters in the book of life that is still being written. Every evening, closing her store or setting aside her manuscript, she repeated to herself the words that had become her mantra. "Tomorrow is a new chapter, and I look forward to seeing what's written in it." Thank you for listening to the story. Let us know what you think in the comments. Subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends and loved ones. Your support motivates us to keep creating new stories every day. Don't miss the next amazing story coming soon to your screen. We're so grateful to have you with us. See you next time.